Hi friends, every job has its rules, but what do you think of this one? As a kid, babysitting was a great way to earn some extra money. One evening, I got a call from a family I'd never met before. They lived in a large, old mansion on the outskirts of town. They offered me an absurd amount of money for just a few hours of work, and I quickly agreed. When I arrived, the parents greeted me at the door with warm smiles, their skin as pale and smooth as porcelain. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," the mother, Lydia, said in a soft, melodic voice. "There are just a few rules we need you to follow." She handed me a handwritten list. The rules were strange, but the money was too good to pass up. I glanced over the list. No mirrors in the house. No garlic in the house. They said it was due to an allergy. No crosses or religious items. They claimed to be atheists. Doors always locked. If anyone comes to the door, do not invite them in. If you get a cut or any kind of injury, treat it immediately with the kit in the bathroom. As odd as the rules were, I nodded and assured them I would follow them. Their son, Elias, was introduced to me. He was very quiet, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to look straight through me. He was polite but distant, and although there were only 3 years between us, it was difficult to get him to even smile. After his parents left, I tried to break the ice with Elias. "So, what do you like to do for fun?" I asked. He shrugged, barely looking up from his book. "I like to read," he said quietly. The night went by uneventfully. Elias read his book while I did some homework. The house was eerily quiet, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I kept reminding myself of the generous payment. Around 9 p.m., I decided to make us some snacks. I rummaged through the kitchen, careful not to find any garlic. I almost chuckled at the absurdity of it all. As I reached for a cabinet, I accidentally knocked a knife off the counter. It grazed my hand, leaving a small cut. Remembering the 5th rule, I rushed to the bathroom to find the first aid kit. I cleaned and bandaged the cut quickly. When I returned to the living room, Elias was standing in the doorway, staring at me intently. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice unusually calm. "Yeah, just a small cut," I replied, showing him my bandaged hand. He nodded and returned to his book without another word. As the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I remembered the strange rules: no mirrors, no garlic, no religious items, locked doors, and the urgency of treating even a small cut. It all pointed to one thing: vampires. The pale skin, the aversion to garlic, the need to be invited in, it all fit. But vampires weren't real. They couldn't be. I tried to brush off my growing paranoia, focusing instead on making sure Elias was comfortable. Around midnight, there was a knock at the door. My heart raced. Remembering the 4th rule, I ignored it. The knocking persisted, becoming more insistent. I glanced at Elias, who seemed unfazed. "Who could that be at this hour?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. "Don't answer it," Elias said firmly, his eyes locking onto mine. "No matter what they say, do not invite them in." The knocking continued, now accompanied by a voice. "Please, let me in. I need help." It sounded like a child, but I knew better. The rules were clear. I stayed put, my eyes darting to the door every few seconds. Eventually, the knocking stopped, and the house fell silent once more. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. A few hours later, the parents returned. They thanked me profusely and paid me the promised amount, plus a generous tip. As they saw me to the door, Lydia paused and looked at me with a serious expression. "You followed the rules well," she said. "Thank you." I nodded, still processing the night's events. As I walked home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something dangerous. The family's pale, beautiful appearance and the strange rules all pointed to one conclusion: they were vampires. Despite my suspicions, the money was too good to pass up. I decided that if they needed me again, I would return. After all, what were a few strange rules compared to the payment I received? But one thing was certain, I would be more careful, and I would always follow their rules to the letter.